Hello everyone, welcome back to LaExcellence Bengaluru presents current issue of the day, episode number 141. In today's episode, we will be discussing a very important topic, especially from the UPSC mains perspective, that is invisible no more, missing women in urban bureaucracy. Okay, we will see what are the issues of women representation in urban bureaucracy, what are the data points given in this, what are the consequences of misrepresentation, and what the measures the government has taken, and what should be the way forward moving away. So I have presented this PPT in a way you can answer your mains answer. Okay, so why it is in news? And first and foremost thing is, in syllabus it comes under GS2, especially governance, in that civil service, as well as it can come under in GS1, society and social issues. And the context is, recently a report was released under that, with urban India expected to host over 800 million people by 2050, inclusive urban governance is critical. While women's representation in politics has improved mainly because of the Nari Shakti bill, urban representation remains overwhelmingly male dominated, which is hampering inclusive planning and service delivery. Okay, so before we move into this particular topic, we have to discuss the recent initiative the government has taken. Okay, so prior to this initiative by the government, there was a demand. What the demand was that the female representation in the politics was very meager, around 15 to 20%, which was lesser compared to African nations of Kenya and even the neighboring countries of Pakistan. So, considering the significance of women in politics, the government decided to provide reservation to women. And the law or the bill which was brought to give effect to this was the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act, or the Women Reservation Bill, or the Act, or famously known as Nari Shakti Vandana Abhiyan. Okay, under this, the government decided to give 33% reservation to women in Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies. Okay, so to an extent, the representation of women in the politics has improved. However, there is no particular reservation in the bureaucracy. Though there is a reservation for SC, ST and women to an extent, but that doesn't match what is the expectation of women in the politics. So we'll discuss what can be done in that regard as well. Okay, first we will understand what are the challenges to women's inclusion in urban bureaucracy. Okay, so why women's representation in bureaucracy is very less? Bureaucracy in the sense all our IAS, IPS, IRS, all these officers, as well as state bureaucracy as well. Okay, so few of the challenges or also the reasons for less representation of women is mainly the patriarchal dominance or the male dominated administrative structure. Okay, it is so male dominated, as a result there are more number of males in the administrative structure compared to the women. So data here is, despite women holding 46% in the local bodies, according to the Ministry of Panchayat Raj 2024 data, women hold only 20% of IAS officers are women. Okay, this is as per India Spend 2022. I am focusing more on the data because the sources of data also becomes important for your mains answer writing, or even in your essay answer writing, or even in ethics also. These data can be used in your answers, so make note of these data. So as I said, 47% of 46% of seats in local bodies are available to women in panchayatis. However, only 20% of the IAS are women. And second one is gender imbalance in technical as well as field roles. Okay, technical as well as field roles. Under this, women constitute just a meager 11.7% of Indian police forces. This is as per Bureau of Police Research and Development report in 2023. And the women representation in the police is mainly in clerical and desk roles. Okay, not in the technical roles or in the field roles of PSI, IPS, etc., etc. So even in that, engineering, sanitation and town planning departments also lack female participation. Okay, only the non-focal roles are being given to women in these areas. Okay, and then there is also absence of affirmative action in bureaucracy. Affirmative action in the sense nothing but reservation provided to the women. The reservation is available to women in panchayats or Lok Sabha or state legislative assembly as per the Nari Shakti Abhiyan, but such reservation is not available in the bureaucracy. Okay, that is what it is explained here. While political reservation exists, no comparable affirmative action exists in technical and administrative urban cadres. Okay, as a result, women representation in these areas lacks. Then, if representation of women is low, what will be the impact on the administration? Okay, the impact of gender gaps in administration is, first and foremost, will be the impact on infrastructure. That is, skewed infrastructure priorities. Okay, the priorities or the infrastructure priorities will be mainly male dominated or male oriented. That is what the male centric planning often ignores women's safety and mobility needs. Women's safety and mobility needs include their menstruation cycles, they include safety during their night offices, include safety in the night shifts, etc., which are often neglected by male centric planning, because these male centric planning will be mainly focused on profit making or administrative efficiencies. As a result, they tend to ignore these aspects. So a stat supporting this is 84% of women in Delhi and Mumbai use public or shared transport. Okay, and then second issue is underfunding of social infrastructure. Okay, services like maternal care, sanitation and child care receive inadequate attention because the administration is being dominated by male centric. Okay, and there is also less responsive governance. Okay, many studies by the World Bank or the United Nations have said that more women in politics, more women in bureaucracy will tend to increase this social infrastructure. Okay, because a woman who is saving more money will tend to deposit that money in the bank or use that money to support maternal care, sanitation or child care. That is the same issue here. Studies by ICR and the United Nations Women indicate female administrators are more responsive to community needs but remain underrepresented. Okay, that is what many studies have proven, that more women in administration or more women in politics have resulted in better social indicators. There is a famous example of, I'll just give an example of women representation in politics and how it has impacted. There is a village called Pullangi. Okay, Pullangi Gaon or Pullangi village in Telangana. Okay, so what happened here is the local bodies or the panchayat was being dominated by women. Okay, so what they did was they passed a resolution. The resolution was banning of homemade or desi liquor. Okay, they banned desi liquor. Now imagine, men being the part of local bodies, would they have taken the step to ban this local liquor? No, because they are the major consumers of this local liquor. But this was banned by women. Okay, so when the ban on liquor was done by the women dominated local bodies, it resulted in better social indicators and more money was allotted to education, more money was allotted to sanitation, etc. So even there are other villages which are which also provide such as instances are Medha Leka village in Maharashtra, I guess. Similarly, the liquor was banned there and women also took up more proactive role in marketing of their own self-help group products. So what they did was they bypassed these licensed commission agents, they bypassed the brokers. when the brokers are bypassed, they were able to market their own products in the larger markets and get more profits. And what did they do with the profits? They again helped in growing education, sanitation, etc., etc. So similarly, if this has been proven in the local bodies, same can be seen or same can be expected if more women are there in bureaucracy. Okay, so that is what the less responsible governance part is. Now, so one of the major solution for this is gender responsive budgeting. Why gender responsive budgeting is very important? One is it will help in addressing gender specific needs. Okay, we saw there are gender specific needs of both male and female, especially females. Gender responsive budgeting ensures urban planning meets differential needs of women. Okay, because of the innate nature of females, innate nature of being born as a woman, they have certain needs such as menstruation, such as maternity care, such as child rearing, etc., etc., that can be taken care by gender responsive budgeting. Okay, so example for this is, you can use this or quote this example in your answers as well. That is, Delhi funded women only buses and street lighting using the gender responsive budgeting to enhance women's mobility and the safety. Okay, when there is more safety, women can take up more riskier jobs. Women can take up jobs which require them to work in night shift. Okay, so when they are allowed to work in night shift, when the companies are able to hire women to work in the night shift, obviously they will have more economic independence. When there is more economic independence, they can address the issues of women separately. Then it prevents skewed infrastructure investment. Okay, with male dominated, there will be more male centric. With gender responsive budgeting, it will be more neutral. That is, without gender responsive budgeting, cities may prioritize metros and flyovers over creches, toilets and footpaths. What is this creche? These are the areas where women can take care of their child. Okay, so when there is a gender responsive budgeting, these aspects can be taken more care. And finally, it also helps in enhancing accountability and civic participation. And the best example for this is Kerala's People's Plan campaign, which links local budget to gender goals, promoting grassroots empowerment. Okay, when there is a grassroots empowerment led by women, it will have a trickle up effect. Okay, so this is why gender responsive budgeting is very important. Now, what has the government done in regard to these things? Okay, so steps taken by Indian governments in the past. First and foremost is the constitutional provisions. Under 73rd and the 74th constitutional amendment, there is 33% reservation for women in panchayat institutions and urban local bodies. Panchayat Raj institutions and urban local bodies. And 17 states plus 1 union territories have raised this to 50%, resulting in overall 46% female representation. Very important. Under the constitution, the provision is only 33%. However, certain states such as 17 states and 1 union territories have increased that reservation to 50%. Okay, and then gender budgeting. Since 2005 and 6, the government of India as well as the particular state governments are going for gender responsive budgeting. Example, Delhi women only buses and improving lighting has provided more mobility and more access to work. And in Tamil Nadu, it applies gender responsive budgeting across 64 departments of the government. And Kerala also links gender responsive budgeting with People's Plan campaign. Okay, all these examples are very important for you. You can quote this either in your essay or either in your GS answers. I keep repeating this because it is very important. And then there is support for women-centric governance models. One of the major example for this is Kutumbashri or Kudumbashri model of Kerala, which empowers women in micro planning and implementation in urban and peri-urban areas or semi-urban areas. Okay, so please make note of these important examples. and then of some of the best practices around the world as well. So global best practices for gender inclusive urban governance are, there is mandatory gender budgeting, such as Philippines allocates 5% of local budgets to gender initiatives. Very good example. And then Uganda, many consider these as a low developed countries or low income countries. Even then they are more improved or developed in than India in terms of women responsive budgeting. This requires gender equity certificates for fund approvals. Only when a department provides a gender equity services certificates that women and men are given equal representation, only then funds are approved for a particular department. Okay, very important initiative. And then there is participatory urban planning, such as South Korea, which uses gender impact assessments to redesign public transport. Okay, and South Africa, which pilots participatory planning to include marginalized voices such as women. All these examples are very important for you, so do make note of these examples. So finally, what should be the way forward moving on? Okay, we have seen that government has taken steps, however it is not enough, however it is not adequate. So what should be the way forward? First and foremost is there should be affirmative action in terms of bureaucracy as well. That is affirmative action in urban bureaucracy. That is introduce quotas, fellowships and gender sensitive recruitment in policing, town planning, engineering and civic administration. Okay, all these departments, all these sectors or areas of the society or areas of the policing should be taken care such that women's representation is in line with the men as well. Then institutionalize gender responsive budgeting in urban local bodies. That is making gender audits, participatory budgeting and gender disaggregated outcome tracking mandatory. All these things should be made mandatory so that there will be more gender responsive budgeting in urban local bodies or urban bureaucracy. And then creating inclusive workplaces. One of the major hurdle for women not going for work or not going to school is because of the non-inclusive workplaces or non-inclusive schools. Okay, so the workplaces should have places such as creches or places such as toilets where they can take care of their menstruation and maternity care. Okay, that is improving workplace safety, promoting leadership roles and ensure family friendly human resource policies in municipal bodies. Okay, family friendly in the sense female have a dual role or women have a dual role. Dual role is one as a worker of a particular department, other as a mother, other as a wife, other as a son-in-law, daughter-in-law. All these roles are practiced by women in their household and then as a worker in the workplaces. Okay, and then there is capacity building and sensitization. That is training bureaucrats in gender inclusive governance and urban design. Okay, so this gender sensitization word is very important. Not only the government, it is the government's role, but it is also the role of the people present in the particular bureaucracy, that they are more sensitive towards the need of women, they are more sensitive towards the care of women. Okay, all these things should be taken care. Only then there is a change from the behavior, change from the governance, change from the infrastructure, change from the bureaucracy. All these things can happen with these way forwards. So all these points becomes very important for you. So this ends our today's discussion. If you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it and also subscribe to the channel. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind.